And now, the UPSA anthem. Thank you so much. I can thank the UPSA choir and ask you to please resume your seats. Thank you all so much. How many of you fumbled when we're singing the national anthem? Yeah, you know yourselves. Right, so now united in patriotism, collective identity, and national pride, let's now begin the ceremony proper. And we know that we're gathered here to have a national dialogue. Have a national dialogue on tackling tax revenue leakages in Ghana. Exactly what this means and why we're all invited here to witness this conversation and participate in it. We will have all that told us with clarity and purpose. So let's get the welcome remarks from the Vice Chancellor of the University of Professional Studies right here in Accra. Help me welcome on stage Professor John Kweku Mensah Mawuto to give us the welcome remarks, and after that, introduce a chairperson for us. Please, we can do better than this. Thank you so much, sir. Yes.
Thank you. The Pro Vice Chancellor, Registrar, Deans, Directors, Your Royal Majesty, King Taki Teviatru II, the Government Chair, the Chairman for this occasion, the Rep of His Excellency, former President John Ejekun Kufuor, our revered traditional leaders, members of parliament and senior government officials, past and present, colleagues from academia, executives from the private sector, students from the second cycle, as well as other students from other institutions, my dearest students from the UPSA, our friends from media, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. This morning, indeed this afternoon, I bid you all a warm welcome to this very special event. As the Vice Chancellor of UPSA, it is my great honor to host today's National Dialogue on Tackling Tax Revenue Leakages. Indeed, we are privileged that our deliberation today is chaired by His Royal Majesty King Tae Ko Chru II, the government chair whose leadership bridges our rich traditional heritage with modern governance. We are equally honored to have the rep of our former President John Ejekum Kufuor as our guest of honor. His decades of statesmanship and commitment to Ghana's development, which indeed add great weight to this dialogue. Indeed, once again, we have been inspired by His Royal Majesty's reminder of communal values of duty and probity, and by President Kufuor's emphasis on leadership and public trust in the service of the nation. Chairman, today's dialogue is of paramount importance for tax revenue, which underpins infrastructural development and security. The last time I checked, Ghana's tax to GDP ratio remains strikingly low, only about 14%, placing us well below the sub-Saharan African average. The gap means we must compensate by borrowing or cutting vital spending. Equally, alarming studies show that our economy is bleeding from leakages, worth roughly $5 billion every year. Chairman, I'm not here this afternoon to make this program a partisan one, but it's a national issue we need to tackle with all on board. But one could say, if indeed our systems over the years have been so porous, why then do we describe Ghana as broke? One could easily suggest that we are bleeding from billions of cedis lost annually through tax leakages. Every cedi lost is a classroom unbuilt or medicine undelivered. We have heard our senior experts, including former government officials and analysts, who are united in this alarm. Indeed, tax evasion, smuggling, and institutional weaknesses as root causes, and echoed the call. To me, this is Ghana versus corruption. In the mining sector, Chairman, illicit flows are estimated at $2 billion every year, and even modernized systems will falter without vigilance. Chairman, scanning through what is happening in this country, it simply tells you that as citizens and also leaders in academia, it is very important that we share our knowledge and see how best we can probably reduce this menace. And to combat this menace, the government has already launched major initiatives. In 2021, GRA unveiled the RACE initiative, Revenue Assurance and Compliance Enforcement, as a multi-agency strategy to identify and seal leakages. The race aims to strengthen collections from hidden taxpayers and also address the system where our records moving from a Ghana with tax GDP of 14% toward the African norm of about 18%. Likewise, our custom administration now runs the integrated customs management system, a single window platform that has significantly transformed trade facilitation, eliminated duplicate routes, and boosted revenues at the ports. These reforms have already borne fruit. For example, I know of the ICUMs, which helped Ghana exceed its revenue targets at our busiest ports despite global disruptions. Nietzsche. But policy initiatives alone will not suffice. Central to our progress must be partnership across all sectors: academia, government, the private sector, civil society, and our traditional communities. Each have roles to play. We can also draw on the data from the Ghana card. That is the digital address, the TIN registers, and more. A reminder that universities like UPSA can also contribute to research and analysis to refine these tools. Indeed, UPSA itself has championed academia-industry collaborations. At the just-ended ICB Med conference, I did stress that strong partnership between researchers, businesses, and policymakers are urgent for Ghana's economic transformation. At UPSA, various faculty members are actively studying and publishing papers to help tackle revenue leakages. Likewise, the involvement of our traditional and religious leaders today underscores that together we can build public trust in paying taxes, encouraging openness and accountability. We ask ourselves, how do we do this? It's a very difficult venture, because for every 1 cedi stolen, there is a beneficiary. But those who lose are Ghanaians. And this loss would translate into reduction in development in educational infrastructure. Therefore, it's incumbent on us to ensure and also to help in addressing this issue. Nietzsche, before we start this conversation, let me share with you a revenue tackling, leakage tackling technique I learned from my in-law when I paid them a visit about 4 years ago, where the task of my in-law was to sit by his computer in his room to monitor electricity consumption in his community, and that was all that he does. I'm just hoping that in this country, we will have jobs for our youth where we can tax them wherever they are to independently monitor the system and ensure that not even a penny or a cedi of the Ghanaian taxpayer is lost to revenue leakages. And in this regard, it is my fervent prayer that we will use modern technology to address these revenue leakages. We have used the same approaches, but there's a need for us to address them. Distinguished guests, the solutions are within the grasp. If we act together, let us leave this hall with optimism and commitment. By sealing the leaks in our tax system, we open the gates to better schools, hospitals, and infrastructure for every Ghanaian. Today, we can ensure that the outcomes of this dialogue translates into real reforms and renewed prosperity for Ghana. Me, Chair, invited guests, ministers of state, heads of corporate institutions, Thank you, and I look forward to our continued work on this vital national mission. Thank you. I have been given additional task by the MC. I'm privileged to introduce the chairman for this occasion, King Dr. Taki Tekochru II. His Royal Majesty is the Ga Manche, the paramount chief of the Ga people in the Greater Accra region of Ghana. He ascended the throne in 2010 following his nomination and installation as a traditional ruler of the Ga traditional area. As Ga Manche, he oversees the preservation of Ga cultural heritage, traditions, and history, while promoting social and economic development. This is where I love most about the Ga Manche. Ga Manche is married with children who are engaged in community leadership and development activities. His work has earned him respect as a traditional leader committed to the progress of the Ga people and Ghana. Please, with a standing ovation and some wonderful applause, please, I want you to acknowledge our chairman, King Dr. Taki Tekochru II, as the chairman of this August occasion. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, Prof. Please resume your seats. Thank you all so much. And the Ga Manche himself is not here, but well represented, as you can see. But he has a message for us. And so if the technical team is ready, let's listen to Ga Manche now. Well, I'm sure we'll bring that to you later in the course of the program. But let's move on now. And we will have to get an acceptance speech from the Ga Manche. And his representatives here will be able to do that for us. Shall we welcome aboard the rep for the Ga Manche? Please, with a round of applause.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Nime, Name, school B institutions. Ni afọ ni nefe kechemi keba biene mi anyomanye. I was thinking when the Vice Chancellor was talking, he should have mentioned the market women, because they matter a lot. Taxes, they matter a lot. They should have been here. Because I just left East Legon about sharing the same taxation issue. And I was thinking they should have been here, because they can go back into the system and educate them more when you pay taxes, the effect of the taxes. But let's go on. I'm reading this speech on behalf of His Royal Majesty King Taki Tekochru, who is the Ga Manche and the President of the Ghana Traditional Council. Unfortunately, he should have been here, but with other assignments, I step in to fill his shoes. I'm Nia Henenunu III, the Abola Manche, and the advisor to the Ga Manche. Esteemed Vice Chancellor, Pro-Vice Chancellors, Minister of State, our former Finance Minister, faculty and staff here present, Nime, Name, Nananom, students, distinguished invited guests, friends of the media, ladies and gentlemen. Considering the importance of the topic to nation building I did not hesitate to accepting the invitation when a delegation called upon me to invite me to chair this occasion. I therefore have the distinct pleasure to chair this important national dialogue on tackling revenue leakages in Ghana. At the very outset, let me emphasize that our nation's economy is in a fragile state. In such circumstances, any form of financial leakage is not just unfortunate. It is a national emergency that must concern every well-meaning Ghanaian. In 2020 alone, according to available statistics, money that leaked out of our public coffers was estimated at $2 billion at a time when the tax to GDP ratio hovered around 15%, which is below the 20% target set by ECOWAS. It cannot be denied that we need more resources to improve the lives of our people. And therefore, it is the responsibility of every citizen to contribute their fair share to nation building. My esteemed participants, it is a truism that taxes are the backbone of every nation's development. Though sometimes burdensome, compliance with tax obligation ensures that we can fund critical areas such as healthcare, education, and infrastructure, as we as national security. A responsibility citizen is one who understands this and fulfills tax obligation willingly and promptly. Articles 179 and 180 of the 1992 Constitution of the Republic of Ghana place a solemn duty on the executive to account for past expenditures and present to forward-looking budget to Parliament. These budget statements shape the government's fiscal and economic strategy and determine the path of national development. The budget, as a matter of convention, details expected government revenue from taxes and non-taxes resources. Therefore, it is refreshing and worthy of note that year in and year out, the Ghana revenue is praised for having met his revenue target. Paradoxically, government expenditures continue to be underfunded, and we are therefore compelled to close the gap through donor funding, that is, from external sources. Distinguished guests, Ghana Revenue Authority, that is the GRA, has a mandate to mobilize revenue from direct and indirect taxes through compliance and enforcement strategies. But more must be done to curb the persistent growing leakages. As Government Chair, I speak with deep communal, economic, moral concerns, guided by the Ghana principle, we rise together to build a nation. I believe that unity and diligence, underpinned by fiscal integrity, are vital in this era. Eliminating leakages means redirecting much needed resources to serve the people better. Let me now turn to the major sources of revenue leakages and propose some remedies. Distinguished guests, paying taxes to state is important for several key reasons, including the following: funding public services, which is taxes finance essential services such as healthcare, education, housing, communications, transportation, public safety, police security, and fire service. electricity, and infrastructure, among others. 2, supporting government operations. Taxes allow the government to function effectively by paying for administrative costs, defense, and law enforcement. 3, redistribution of wealth. Tax systems often include progressive taxation to reduce economic inequality by redistributing wealth through welfare programs and subsidies. 4, economic stability and growth. Taxes can influence the economy by controlling inflation, managing demand, and funding development projects. 5, legal obligation. Paying taxes is a civic duty, and this is what I like most. Paying taxes is a civic duty. Article 41J of the 1992 Constitution imposes a duty on every citizen to declare his income honestly to the appropriate and lawful agencies and to satisfy all tax obligation. We should note the number 5, legal obligation. Paying taxes is a civic education, which each and every one of us is our duty to pay taxes to the government for development. Avoiding taxes can result in legal penalties, fines, or imprisonment. This is why tax education of the public is an essential duty on the part of the government. Distinguished invited guests, my researchers have revealed that within the Ghana Revenue Authority, five recent reforms aim at driving compliance through registration with the GRA, as well as filing, paying taxes, disclosing income honestly, have been put in place. These are online filing, online payment, e-tax clearance certificate, integrated customs management system, which leverages on technology and increasing revenue, introducing of ICUMS to facilitate efficient classification, valuation, and clearance as a trade facilitation tool. Distinguished invited guests, while we have thought that above intervention should support the RIC in an appreciable level of revenue, but sadly, that is not the case. It is therefore imperative to focus on the reasons of the severe bleeding of our economy through leakages, after which I will attempt to offer suggestions to ameliorate the situation. I will dwell on the following 4 sources of severe revenue leakages, namely tax evasion, 2, money laundering, 3, illicit financial flows, and lastly, corruption. Tax evasion. The value-added tax was introduced to promote tax revenue collection with ease as it relates to consumption. The reality is that many traders, businesses, and service providers do not charge the VAT. One is often confronted with, do you want VAT invoice? If yes, one is told, you will pay higher. Regrettably, those expected to charge the VAT create the incentive for the VAT not to be issued. Some businesses charge the VAT all right, but do not account for it or pretend to account for it, just to be seen to be fulfilling in all righteousness, or in some cases, true carding. Money laundering. There are arrangements that use legal systems to hide the source of illegal money. Alternatively, some whitewash illegal money through the acquisition of property and resell them later by hiding where the money was illegally acquired from. Corruption. This distorts incentives and undermines public trust in the institution. Some tax officials collude with taxpayers to deny the nation of the much-needed revenue. Appropriate sanctions such be complied or applied against such officers when caught. As promised earlier, the suggestions below are meant to address the challenges with respect to the matter at hand. Firstly, we need to formalize the informal sector. The formal sector. It can not be gained that the informal sector continues to enjoy perpetual tax holidays. The GRA should help the informal sector from associations to enable them, the traders, pay taxes through the association. I'm not obvious of the use of the Ghanaian card or Ghana card number as a tax identification number, a TIN, in order to identify tax payers so as to widen the tax net and improve revenue mobilization. Can we also decide that enough is enough? We are determined to protect our nation. The slogan should be, if you see something, say something. In conclusion, we have here in this room experts and adequate professionals who can add to my proposals or fine-tune them to plug all loopholes that facilitate revenue losses to the state. I have barely stretched the surface of the problem and will now resume my seat and listen to the experts. As Government Chair, I reaffirm that traditional authorities are committed to promoting civic duty, integrity, grassroots education, and accountability in our communities. I therefore invite all who are represented here to partner with us to form a formidable alliance to move our country forward. This, in my opinion, is how to build a prosperous and self-reliant Ghana. So together, let us mend and cracks in our nation's jar so that it may hold water for the good of all citizens. Finally, may I end on a note of caution. Government must ensure that revenues raised, taxes are strictly applied to the purpose for which they are raised according to our laws. In this connection, I urge the Minister of Finance and Parliament to focus on our allocation of resources to our development budget compared to a recurrent budget so that we can see more benefits from payment of taxes through the realization of rapid national progress. I thank you all for your attention.
Thank you so much, Ni Ahele Nuno Abuala Manchen. Now that we know who our chairperson is and we've listened to the chairperson or the speech read on behalf of the chairperson, let me quickly introduce our esteemed guests, dignitaries among us, and then we can set the ball rolling proper. Remember, this is a national dialogue on tackling the tax revenue leakages in Ghana. Over the next 1.5 hours, we are going to quantify the economic impact of tax revenue leakages on fiscal, space, and service delivery. We will showcase the achievements and lessons of some initiatives in customs, petroleum, and domestic taxation. And we will generate cross-sector recommendations to strengthen enforcement, data sharing, and digital payment adoption. And finally, we will try to build a coalition of policymakers, business associates, and civil society watchdogs committed to raising Ghana's tax to GDP ratio. So please indulge me, let me introduce our dignitaries, and we will get right to it. We have in our midst, of course, I've introduced the Vice Chancellor already. The names I'm mentioning, they are either here, on their way, or well represented by someone. We have here today former President of the Republic of Ghana, His Excellency John Agyekum Kufuor. We also have the former Finance Minister of Ghana, Honorable Dr. Mohamed Amin Adam. I see him right in front. Can we give him a round of applause? We also have the Deputy Commissioner, Ghana Revenue Authority, and we'll be hearing from her shortly, Elsie Apau Esquire. We also have the Dean Faculty of Accounting and Finance. They are the organizing body of this great platform, Professor Isaac Boedi. We also have Dr. Eric Boachi-Yadom. He's Senior Lecturer, Financial Economist. We have the Executive Secretary, Chamber of Petroleum Consumers, Mr. Duncan Amwa. And we have a group of people coming from the Office of the Vice Chancellor, Professor John Kweku Mensah Mauto, Professor Emmanuel Selassie Asamoah, Pro VC, Academic and Student Affairs, Professor Samuel, Mrs. Lorraine Bweki-Jan, Registrar, Mr. Nicholas N. Ajay, Director of Finance. I don't hear your applause. And we have from the delegation of the Gamanche, His Royal Majesty King Takite Kochu. We have Ni Ahele Nuno Abuala Manche. We just heard from him. We have Ni Abuachiri Wanda, Chief Fisherman. Ni Mate Kole III, Manye Abba Ashawa, Manye Abekam. Ni Jasi Adeshi Akrong IV, Ochiami Afla, Okolamte Umbrella. Ni Makata, Gan State Asafwache. Ambassador Sir S.J.K. Parker Alote, Chief PF Protocol and Communications of the Gamanche. We also have a list of representatives from the Mempasem, Ni Togbo Obodai Ampao, the Sith, Mempasem Manche. Please, if you are here, wave, right, a round of applause for him. Asafwache Ni Ampao III, Ni Ajasai Wulu, Ni Ochame Abe, XWO Badu, Aja Ampao Champion, Awan Kai Asoyi, Ni Toto Soja, Deborah Amon, and Ashley Toshi. And we also have His Royal Majesty Dasibre Ofosukwabi, Ayebiashe, King of Odiaman. Where is he? A round of applause for him. Thank you so much for joining us. And we have Reverend Dr. Stephen Wenham. We have Honorable Francis Javier Sosu. We have Professor Kwame Jan Esquire, Professor Abdullah Ali Nakia, Dr. Richard K. Boso, Gilbert Yirenchi Ado, Mr. Duncan Amwa, and others. In the course of the program, I will be introducing them more as they come in. So it's time now to hear from the former President of the Republic of Ghana, His Excellency John Agyekum Kufuor. He is our eminent guest, and he's been represented by Dr. Kwabena Bonfe Jr., Dr. James Kwabena Bonfe Jr., who will read a speech on behalf of the former President of Ghana. Let's welcome him with a round of applause.
What a humbling assignment. Obviously, I'm not His Excellency John Agyekum Kufuor, the gentle giant. I am privileged to stand here as his adopted son and protege to speak to a speech that he wants to be delivered to this conference. And just before I go on, Chairman, I met my big brother, a worthy son and protege of His Excellency, former President here, Dr. Mohamed Amin Adam. And so I told him that I will seek permission from him to continue to do the assignment. and I'm hopeful that it's granted. His Excellency would have wished to be here with us, and so he says that me, Chairman, and all guests, I should convey his warm felicitations. I want to go ahead and read what he wanted us to present here. Our Chairman, Your Royal Majesty the Ga Manche, Ni Taki Teiko Tru II, distinguished organizers from the University of Professional Studies, Accra, honored officials, traditional leaders, members of the private sector, development partners, and fellow citizens. Good afternoon. I feel deeply honored to speak at this national dialogue on tackling tax revenue leakages in Ghana. Listening to the Ga Manche and his insightful remarks, I am reminded that the strength of our nation lies in both its rich traditions and contemporary institutions working hand in hand. We are here today because we want to collectively face the task of finding answers to a critical subject to our development: tax revenue leakages. At the heart of this topic is citizenship, leadership, national accountability, and service to humanity. When a nation fails to collect the required revenues or loses collected taxes to thieves, corruption, and mismanagement, it will fail to provide responsive service to the people. We must be sincere about the resolve to find solutions to revenue leakages. Ghana's tax system has evolved over time with governmental efforts. In the early post-independence days, revenues came mainly from cocoa and import duties. In the 1990s, we introduced a value-added tax, VAT, though not without the initial controversies such as the Kumipreku demonstrations. Most of these tax regimes targeted the same class of people. By the time I took office in 2001 January, however, we saw the need to further strengthen revenue mobilization. We witnessed the display of determination by the late Grace Coleman, who served as a Deputy Minister for Finance, personally going to the ports to help raise revenues. We firmly believed in the mantra that the private sector is the engine of growth, but we also understood that any growth needed fuel. In governance, that fuel is revenue. Thus, we streamlined and modernized tax collection by unifying all the revenue collection agencies under the Ghana Revenue Authority, GRA, to increase the power for revenue mobilization. We also adopted automation in the activities of the Revenue Authority by computerizing tax processes, reduce the human interplay and the related bottlenecks. My government laid the foundation to digitize our system in an effort to curb leakages in revenue collection and, most importantly, expand the revenue base. This was imperative because, largely, the taxpayers were in the bracket of formal or public sector employees. Our economy has largely been informal or private. Therefore, most of them operated outside the limited tax or revenue net. As we know too well, quote, "You do not fleece the goose that laid the golden eggs," unquote. The introduction of the National Identification Authority under my reign was more than just for the identity systems, but also an avenue to broaden the tax net to include the private or informal sector who had mostly evaded contributing to our revenue. The private sector is not only a source of a large portion of taxes, it is also a source of expertise, innovation, and efficiency. We also noted that remuneration and wages were woefully inadequate. An unsatisfactory wage or salary, which is overtaxed, definitely annoys the worker. An underpaid or overtaxed An underpaid or overtaxed worker would find an easy excuse in fraud. So we decided to make tax payment bearable for the ordinary person. We worked to raise the minimum earnings of workers, especially the cocoa farmer. We should remember that tax is not about squeezing more out of the same base by raising rates, but rather it is about broadening the base, enhancing compliance, and fostering growth. During my presidency, we applied a zero tolerance for corruption policy, understanding that corruption is a major driver of revenue leakage. Today, I reiterate that grafts and leakages are twin evils that erode public trust and deprive us of the needed development. Many Ghanaians feel reluctant to pay taxes when they are unsure of where the money will go. To overcome this, government must be open about tax and expenditure. Publish the figures, report on projects, celebrate successes, and admit shortcomings where there are any. Trust, once established, creates a virtuous cycle. Compliance is improved, revenue increases, and leakages will naturally decline. Some surveys have found that Ghanaians may be willing to pay more taxes for national development with greater transparency and accountability. In the 21st century, our greatest ally in combating revenue leakage is technology backed by honest personnel. We live in a digital age where data is key and processes can be automated to reduce human error and temptation. Technology represents what we need in minimizing manual interventions. It seals off many of the loopholes that leak revenue. For instance, if the volume of fuel lifted from a depot is automatically reported to a central system, it becomes far harder for any party to underdeclare and avoid paying the appropriate tax. Our history shows that when we combine political will, public trust, and practically informed solutions, we can achieve great strides. It is time to summon these very elements needed to tackle gaps in our revenue collection again. We can pay taxes through secure online platforms where inconsistencies or suspicious transactions are flagged in real time. That future is within reach, and I urge the government to invest in these digital infrastructure and capacity building for our revenue agencies. Ladies and gentlemen, addressing leakages is not a one-time event, but an ongoing process. Ghana has set a goal in line with our West African peers to reach a 20% tax to GDP ratio and beyond. This is ambitious, but achievable with sustained effort. First, we need the political will and policy consistency. Second is continuous improvement. Third, and perhaps most importantly, we must keep the public engaged and informed. Citizen engagement and taxpayer education should not be a one-off campaign. It should be a continuous conversation. Citizens should know about how their taxes are making a difference in their lives. A growing economy with thriving businesses and gainfully employed citizens will naturally lead to more revenue. Therefore, even as we crack down on leakages, we must continue to pursue policies that stimulate economic growth and diversification. As a country, we must be deliberate about creating wealth and wealthy individuals through a commitment to creativity, innovation, and integrity, as well as hard work. Me, Chairman, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the task of eliminating tax revenue leakages and improving revenue collection is a formidable one. But it is essential for the future we want. A Ghana that is self-sufficient is the only guarantee to safeguarding our sovereignty. We have the knowledge, the tools, and the people necessary to succeed. Today's forum is proof that across Ghana's society, there is a will to change. Our traditional leaders are committed, our institutions are gearing up with new ideas, our private sector is ready to collaborate, and our citizens are awakened to the need to pay and protect taxes. Let us each live here as an ambassador to plug revenue leakages without fear or favor. Whether as a professional, politician, or business owner pledging honest tax declarations, or a citizen who will hold leaders accountable, we all have a role to play. Together, we can significantly increase our tax to GDP ratio, not by burdening the few, but by empowering and encouraging all to contribute and ensure that contributions are protected and wisely used. Ghana will become the prosperous and inclusive society we envision. I thank the organizers for spearheading this conversation. May the insights we are going to gain and have gained already guide concrete actions in the months and years ahead. The fight against tax leakages is a fight for Ghana's soul and future. Together, it is a fight we must win. Thank you for your attention. God bless you and bless our homeland, Ghana.
Thank you so much, Dr. James Kwabena Bonfe Jr. A gentle reminder that we are broadcasting live on the JoyNews channel across all 16 regions of the country and on Metro TV. Now, I want us to steer this event a little bit. You know, when you're putting soluble matter into water or in any sort of liquid, it just sits there until you dissolve, you stir it up a little before it dissolves properly. It's been nearly an hour we've been pouring into you, and we want whatever we are pouring into you to really dissolve. So please, indulge me and let's get some entertainment, I like to call it. If we have Seprewa here with us, he is a composer and he's about to serenade you and make sure that you're ready for the next phase of the conversations and the messages coming in. Please let's welcome Seprewa with a round of applause. We can't wait to experience you.
Seprewa. Obibe busasa na dienyi. Seprewa aye akamfo ade aye didi agro. Seprewa is made up of 3 Akan words. Se literally means speak. Pre, touch, wa, small. So this small instrument speaks when it is touched. Was discovered around 1600. This is the soul of our Ghanaian high life music that we're enjoying today. 1964, my grandfather had a dream and rediscovered it. Taught me how to play. Until maybe before floor. Yeah, can leakages, yeah, instruments and also leakages are back one man in Ira. Yeah, Cassina was here. Mampani dada. Nini penny for went me ama. Doctor. Catch and say Adana sap. Afe crowda. Ayaga mancha. Odi agromo. Manent me ama. Monfa yanchi amanu akunno ni anintina moshiam ni nananu matina nkonwa asuafo amoa da chande she amamunyina kwaba ene nshiamu die Ayasunko when the mean sita. Mama awie deɛ na me deɛ yɛyɛ ne n'ase o ɛma twɛnua mponyankopɔn utumfo nyankopɔn ɔbrɛmpɔn ma ɔbɔɔ so ne asase mada wase o agya asafo yɛho ɔbaade a wo mada wase ɛkasa o ɔtwɛnua mponyame onyame na si ahene ɔne na nwene nipa onipa te asema no ampa wɔtwɛnua mponyame yɛte asema no ti deɛ yɛka ne sɛ gyae wodin mu mu na ayɛ yie nka afei yɛde asɛm bi ahyɛ ma no ɛto a ɛho nyini na tokura anasɛ ɛbɔn bi da ho ɛno ho asɛm ne yɛka ne ne UPSA ayɛ adeɛ ɔman bi yi ayɛ gyina ɛtoɔ so ɔman bi ankɔsoɔ gyina ɛtoɔ so nananom ɔman bi ani asate so a wɔhwehwɛ mpɔntuo na wɔsoro sɛ wɔbɛtu atoɔ yɛmɛnya yɛtemu yi akane yɛfata sɛ ɔman bi ade yɛ yie onyame de akyɛ yɛn nkɔ a yɛwɔ kunino ne yɛne ntini a yɛatete wɔn ɛwɔ ɔman yi mu ɛnso yɛnkɔ so atɔ ape nananom yɛyie yɛ akɔyɛ asɛm bio onyankopɔn de nneɛma nyinaa kyɛ ɔman Ghana ameyɛ sika mfuturo ameyɛ sika akɔ ameyɛ dɛnkyɛmmoɔ ɛfam agudeɛ ntwoma bauxite no wameyɛ mframagya yɛwɔ ɛfam nwo wakye yɛ nku a yɛde bɛsra prɛkɛsɛ nso ka ho saa nneɛma nyinaa gya de akyɛ yɛn nkwa nti akande a na nka wɔ sɛ wɔman de di yie pa anka yɛwɔ amebusa o na adɛn ne nyinaa ne sɛ sika bi ne ɛbɛtu a baabi ɛwɔ sɛ ɛkɔ ɛnkɔ nti ɛna ama ɔman Ghana ɔman yɛ yɛte sika soɔ yɛde kyɛnse ne nam o ɛsrɛ deɛ yɛbɛdie ɛmsabra no aso
Hi. Round of applause for Seprewa.
nti wɔbaa ma mesima baako pɛ na memfa nwie wate adeɛ baako a ɛbɛboa ma ɔmɛyɛ di yie paa ne sɛ nnipa bɛka no ɔkorɛ ananom no ɔkorɛ yɛnka nti ama yɛmɛyi atɔ apeo abere bia mesɔre a na meso sɛ ne nkyirima bɛyɛ dani nti mesrɛ wɔ sɛ na nyame ayɛ adoro sɛ mpanyimfoɔ bɛtoɔto adeɛ a ɛnya no ɔkorɔdie ano na bɛboa mesrɛ nkwa ɛnyi nkyerɛ deɛ amaboafoɔ ayɛ boayɛ na menim sɛ yɛnhyia yɛ a yɛabɛhyia yɛ nkwasoɔ bɛba ama wɔma de ne ntoma pa fira nti mema mo nyinaa akɔ aba
Yes, Seprewa, everyone. Thank you so much. Yeah. How long the clap lasts tells me how much you enjoyed him. So thank you so much for... Oh, okay. Yes, you can do it more for him. All right. So let me quickly also acknowledge the presence of Dr. Paul Boache-Dankwa. I think he's left us. We also have students from WAS, Presec, Kwabenya, Preset, I think it's Preset Paysetters Academy, Fafraha, UPSA students, and all UPSA staff. You are duly acknowledged. A round of applause for yourselves. We also have Sheikh Rashid Odoy Achim. La Chief Imam, representing the Chief Imam. Please wave at us. Thank you so much for gracing this august occasion. Right, let's move on now. It's time for us to listen to the former Finance Minister, Honorable Dr. Mohammed Amin Adam. He's our special guest, and he has this is your time, sir, to give us your address. Let's welcome him with a round of applause. In addition to being your master of ceremony, I'll also be your accurate timekeeper, sir. So if you see me walking to you with a piece of paper, you have a minute to wrap up. Thank you.
Thank you. I saw my professor walk in. Welcome, Prof. Thank you for the opportunity to address this crucial national dialogue on tackling tax revenue leakage. I would like to extend my gratitude to the Vice Chancellor of UPSA, Prof. John, and the organizers of this event for bringing together the finest brains in our country from academia, government, and industry. Let me especially acknowledge the chairman for the National Dialogue on Taxation, His Royal Majesty King Dr. Taki Teku Chu II. My father, former President of the Republic, His Excellency John Adekum Kufuor. My colleague here, the Honorable Member of Parliament for Medina, Honorable Francis Xavier Kojo Sosu. Nananum, distinguished invited guests, lecturers, and of course, my senior brother is hiding there, Ali, and all the other experts that have been invited to participate in this great dialogue. I thank you all for your commitment to our country and for the various roles you are playing to ensure that our country is transformed for the benefit of our people. Let me begin with a fundamental truth. The path to Ghana's economic independence runs directly through effective tax administration. Our failure to achieve optimal levels of tax revenues has meant that we have compromised our determination to put our country on the path of sustainable economic growth and development. A simple review of our tax institutional environment will reveal high expectations of the greater revenues we should be generating. For example, our country has seen too many tax reforms. We've implemented too many tax handles. Our tax authority, Ghana Revenue Authority, GRA, has deployed the highest number of software products in Ghana for tax purposes. The last count, 20 software products. And GRA, as we know, is one of the biggest state institutions by employment. Notwithstanding all this, our tax system exhibits evidence of low tax elasticity. This means that tax revenue generated has not been as significantly sensitive to changes in economic activity or tax reforms, because we expected to get more following all these interventions that we have made as a country. We are therefore not near our median potential in tax revenue, and this is demonstrated by available data. Ghana's tax to GDP ratio stands around 14%, specifically I think about 13.8%. And tax to non-oil GDP stands at 17%. When I was exiting as finance minister, I thought we had taken it to about 17% in tax to GDP ratio. But once the GDP data was revised, it brought us back to around 14%, which means that there is potential and we can do better given the size of GDP that we have today. Ladies and gentlemen,
while this represents some improvement, it still falls below the sub-Saharan African average of 16% and far below the OECD average of 34%. A VAT gap analysis conducted by GRA in 2022 also found an estimated gap of 61%, meaning that the actual VAT revenue collected in Ghana is only 39% of its potential. Similarly, for corporate income tax, the gap is estimated at a staggering 81.5% on a representative sample used in 2013. These figures demonstrate that our challenges as a country are not a shortage of tax instruments or tax reforms, but rather their effective administration and implementation. But the effects of not realizing our tax potential are staggering. They represent the much-needed schools that are not built, the hospitals that are not equipped, and the roads that are not paved. In fact, our development financing needs continue to grow as the infrastructure deficit remains very high at $15 billion United States dollars for the next 10 years. This gives you an average of $1.5 billion a year. Unstable power supply, which has resulted in efficiency cost of $1.1 billion to the economy, and a housing deficit of 2 million units, just to mention a few. While we struggle with domestic resource mobilization, the global landscape of development financing is also fast transforming before our very eyes. For example, the OECD reports that international aid fell by 7.1% in real terms in 2024 compared with 2023. And this was driven by reduced contributions to international organizations and decreased humanitarian aid. About one-half of external inflows in 2024 to sub-Saharan Africa came from official development assistance, of which nearly one-quarter came from the United States of America, and same from Europe. The future of ODA flows is uncertain, as the US is reviewing its entire foreign assistance program. Several large EU donors have also indicated plans to reduce official assistance as they try to create fiscal room to increase security and defense spending, following the new strategy of the US to withdraw security guarantees. USAID provides Ghana approximately $150 million annually, supporting critical sectors in health, economic growth, agriculture, education, and governance. Yet, this support faces elimination under recent executive orders by the Trump administration. The United Kingdom, which has contributed approximately £2.8 billion sterling in bilateral aid to Ghana over the past 2 decades, is also reprioritizing its overseas aid, shifting resources to poorer and more fragile countries. This has already resulted in significant reductions in bilateral aid programming in social sectors, with education and health seeing the most significant cuts. Moreover, ladies and gentlemen, we operate within an environment where approximately $88.6 billion leaves the African continent through illicit financial flows. Altogether, the developed world is becoming increasingly protective. As the global north turns inward, we, the global south, particularly in Ghana, must tend towards prioritizing domestic efforts at mobilizing resources and prudently managing these resources for the betterment of our people. Our revenue sources, tax and non-tax revenue, bilateral loans, and borrowing from domestic and international capital markets remain woefully inadequate to finance our growth and development. Particularly, as we exit the club of debt distressed countries, through our successful debt restructuring, which resulted in almost $11 billion of savings through debt relief, our constraints in international credit markets will continue to restrain international debt financing as a sustainable source of development financing. The stark reality is that our current profile and size of domestic tax revenue alone cannot even finance our recurring expenditure. Against this compelling reality, ladies and gentlemen, we must do more to raise more domestic revenue to support our development aspirations. We can do this by challenging our conventional wisdom and preconceptions about taxes generally. We play too much with taxes, and this is the bane of our retrogression as a country. Ladies and gentlemen, this reality must therefore be embraced by all Ghanaians. Fact is, in a democracy such as ours, taxation promotes accountability. It is therefore everybody's business. While we are therefore confronted with tax revenue leakages, must be a blot on our national conscience, as many of these leakages are perpetrated by some of our citizens in collaboration with foreign partners. When discussing ways to increase tax revenue, I believe three pathways emerge: increasing the rates of existing taxes, introducing new taxes, and enforcing tax compliance. Given our current circumstances, the evidence overwhelmingly suggests that compliance, which includes the broadening of the tax base, is our most promising avenue. For example, think of our tax system as a water pipe with numerous leakages. Adding more water pressure simply forces more water through the existing leaks. The logical solution, therefore, is to fix the leaks first, ensuring that what flows in also reaches its intended destination. As a result of the leaks in our tax system, tax administration must sit at the center of our tax efforts. With a more efficient and effective tax administration system that ensures compliance, transparency, and accountability, we have the potential to achieve a tax to GDP ratio beyond the sub-Saharan African average of 16% and move toward the OECD average in the long term. Several key reforms were introduced between 2017 and 2024 to overcome the challenges hindering our tax revenue mobilization potential. Key among these are the Revenue Assurance, Compliance, and Enforcement Initiative, RACE, and the Integrated Customs Management System, ICOMS. However, the most far-reaching benefits of RACE and ICOMS are the extent of leakages revealed in our tax system. Some of the findings include the following. The free zones audit, which we conducted, showed that the non-enforcement of the letter of commitment did a major blow to our country. This was therefore introduced, taking effect from February 2024. A customs infrastructure audit, which we also conducted, revealed major scanner inefficiencies and lack of integration with ICOMS at key borders, including Aflao, Elubu, and Takoradi. We engaged 12 mining and oil companies for post-clearance audit, which uncovered potential mismatches between declarations and actual exports. We engaged top 40 exporters, and we identified many unpaid taxes by them. We managed to recover some of them. And so to address some of these challenges, we further streamlined customs processes as well as data management and enabled cross-border risk profiling. We recently, ladies and gentlemen, also implemented some other measures initiated at the Ministry of Finance to address tax revenue leakages. The number one that is at the core of our strategy is the medium-term revenue strategy, 2024 to 2027, which provides a clear path on legislative, policy, and administrative reforms needed to increase revenue and plug the leakages. The MTRS, as we call it, is effectively a roadmap for the transformation of the tax architecture. We also launched a comprehensive digitalization drive to streamline tax administration and reduce the heavy dependence on human interventions that create opportunities for leakage. This is what we call faceless tax system. When we remove the human element from routine tax processes, we minimize corruption and maximize compliance. The personal identification numbers of all Ghanaian citizens who have registered for the Ghana card now integrated with the tax system, has also made it easier, far easier indeed, for tax authorities to identify all eligible taxpayers. We invested in building the capacity of GRA officers to effectively engage with multinational companies. These companies employ sophisticated tax consultants to minimize their tax liabilities. We designed a strategic communication plan that prioritizes sustained civic education across the country to build tax-compliant citizens. A cornerstone of our reform measures was also the rollout of the electronic VAT, the EVAT scheme, which enables the government to gather real-time data on taxpayers, particularly institutional ones, for the first time in the history of GRA. Even though, ladies and gentlemen, these reforms are expected to have far-reaching impact, there are still major challenges to be addressed, particularly in tax administration, tax scoping and design, as well as revenue maximization. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like at this stage to make some key observations which will likely affect tax administration and tax revenue maximization going forward. Number one, high-income sectors like the extractive industries offer boundless opportunities to mobilize tax revenue. It was Otto and his colleagues in 2006 who said, and I quote, "In matters of mining taxation, governments rarely believe that companies pay too much tax. Companies rarely believe that they pay too little tax. And citizens rarely believe that they actually see tangible benefits from the taxes that are paid," unquote. And so this tells you mining taxation is a complex arena, and we therefore need to find ways to tackle these problems associated with the mining sector. But what is clear to me, ladies and gentlemen, is that the current approach to taxing this sector in Africa, including Ghana, creates uncertainty, which could dampen investments in the sector overall. I do not believe that we should tax windfalls from mining companies by using tax handles outside the mineral agreements, such as what we experienced with the increase in the growth and sustainability levy on mining companies. I propose instead a comprehensive fiscal regime with windfall tax features, such as resource rent taxes, to be the basis for legislative review and renegotiation of mineral agreements. This way, mining companies will incorporate these fiscal elements into their project assumption, thereby minimizing risk to investment. Number two, illicit financial outflows continue to be a major drain on our revenue potential. Yet, national legislation is inadequate to address this canker. Aside from strengthening legislation, we must critically examine issues such as debt loading, cost inflation, and cost recovery techniques, which are used to understate tax revenues. Some of these practices have already emerged in a recent audit on upstream petroleum taxes by GRA, which have become the result of international arbitration. Number three, the tax base in Ghana is still narrow, as the economy is largely dominated by the informal sector. Tax experts do not support the use of limited resources to pursue low-income earners for taxes. This is consistent with the canons of taxation. However, ladies and gentlemen, the informal sector in Ghana is quite huge to be ignored, as it constitutes about 92% of all registered companies in Ghana, 85% of all manufacturing jobs in Ghana, and 72% of all of our GDP. We can therefore structure or restructure, if you like, our SMEs through formalization and or corporatization of their operations, support them with long-term financing and training to make them profitable, sustainable, and thereby become an important source of tax revenue. Next one, tax policy and administration is an important factor in determining the size of tax collection. The main policy instruments here, such as compliance, enforcement, reliefs, and exemptions, have undermined our tax system for long as we continue to grapple with suboptimal level of policy combination that does not effectively assure revenue maximization. I'll give you an example. The Ministry of Finance in October 2024 published a report which shows that many businesses below the VAT registration threshold choose to register for VAT. But the survey data also suggests that there are many businesses above the threshold that should register, but who do not. They don't register for VAT at all, and they are getting away free. And this is why you have a gap of 61%. Ladies and gentlemen, a significant share of registered taxpayers also fail to file their tax returns or file a null return with zero sales and purchases. This is one reason why improvements in both voluntary compliance and enforcement are an important part of Ghana's medium-term revenue strategy. Next one. Tax instruments are either introduced or abolished without careful consideration of their impact on revenue. For example, a study by the Ministry of Finance again shows that the VAT flat rate scheme, which was open to small taxpayers in 2023, was likely to have both boosted tax revenues and focused the benefits of reduced administration and compliance costs on those who could benefit most from this scheme. Despite this, the government in the 2025 budget statement reversed the scheme. I still do not understand why the reversal in the scheme. I'm sure Prof. Sitting here and Ali will explain to me. Professor John, I'm referring to you. It is also important for me to state that the IMF's approach, Ghana is going through IMF, but the IMF's approach to fiscal consolidation, which involves reducing government spending and or increasing taxes to address deficits and debts, can indeed lead to countries becoming tax testy. And when we talk about tax testy, that is where countries resort to just increasing taxes, and at the end they tax out the entire economy. This is one of the features of an IMF program. Therefore, the design of most IMF programs, including Ghana's program, gave small premium to tax compliance as a vehicle for increasing tax revenue. Tax compliance did not count much in the tax revenue model. Hence, the significant increases in taxes in 2023. However, rather than make countries tax testy, tax compliance measures and widening the tax net could, whilst requiring investments, lead to correction in tax revenue leakages. We know that tax increases can lead to higher costs for businesses. We know that tax increases can reduce the disposable income for individuals. And also we know that tax increases can slow down economic growth. They can also create political unrest, as we have seen in our history in Ghana. Our government, the previous MPP government, had to suffer from the increased taxes and introduction of new ones in 2023. But this was required because we had to address a huge fiscal adjustment to meet the IMF primary balance target of 0.5% deficit on commitment basis. This adjustment involved a fiscal effort of 4 percentage points of GDP that year. That was a huge adjustment. And Ghanaians really did well by actually enduring this. It was a huge adjustment, and I admit that. But the political consequences have been felt. Just as the political consequences of IMF-induced tax increases have become a feature of our political history, as we saw in 2016 and then in 2024. Notwithstanding the weaknesses of the IMF fiscal consolidation program, the fund in its regional economic outlook for 2025 alludes to some of the measures outlined earlier for addressing tax revenue leakages by recommending efforts at broadening the tax base, reducing arbitrary exemptions, simplifying the tax code, and giving greater emphasis on corporate tax and property tax. I have a few issues to raise to end my speech. which are emerging issues that have implications for domestic revenue. Number one is climate finance. The displacement of fossil fuel, including oil and gas, through accelerated energy transition, would therefore affect revenue flows from oil activity. We must be decisive on our approach to the exploitation of our oil reserves as investment in this industry continues to decline. We must also take a strategic position on green investment financing. This investment, as we know, require tax incentives to become bankable. They are always asking for tax incentives before they become bankable, thus effectively undermining domestic revenue mobilization. We must therefore adopt green technologies and investments that are revenue neutral. In other words, we must have a strategy to recover potential lost revenue through graduated tax lines over the project life cycle. Number two issue is global trade wars. We are in the era of trade wars because of the new tariffs imposed by the United States of America. Tariffs on imports from Ghana reduces the competitiveness of made-in-Ghana products on US markets. But reducing the profitability of Ghanaian exporters also means reducing tax revenue for our country. Some countries, like China and Canada, have also imposed reciprocal tariffs on the United States of America, and there are suggestions that Africa must also follow. Can we do that, Africa? From a tax revenue perspective, I do not encourage Ghana to retaliate for a number of reasons. Our total export to the US is about 2% of GDP, with the non-exempt exports under the new US tariffs standing at 0.4%. The effect is therefore very limited, particularly on our international trade position, which has largely supported our recent recovery. Also, a reciprocal tariff on imports from the US will increase the cost of US exports to Ghana. Given the obsession in Ghana for imported products, this will reduce the disposable income of Ghanaians, thus leading to lower consumption and lower consumer tax revenues. This is my reasons why I do not encourage Ghana to retaliate. In conclusion, see you are coming, I want to emphasize that when we can finance our own development, we dictate our own terms and set our own priorities. Conversely, when we cannot finance our development, we surrender our national wealth and decision-making authority to those who can. That is why the vision we must aim for is a Ghana that is truly self-reliant and self-sufficient. Ladies and gentlemen, we must work together to either strengthen tax compliance today or continue sacrificing our resources and sovereignty tomorrow. Viewed within this lens, the recommendations from today's dialogue must translate into concrete actions that transform our tax administration system. Your Majesty, Chairman, distinguished guests, I hope that this national dialogue will set the scene for concrete decisions and be remembered for the transformative actions that will follow from this platform. I have no doubt we will achieve this because I know very well the panel assembled to do justice to this subject. On this note, let me thank you all once again. May God bless all of us and may God bless our country, Ghana.
Thank you so much, Honorable Dr. Mohammed Amin Adam, former Minister of Finance for the Republic of Ghana. Doc, we have to take some tax from you because you took so much of our time. Do you agree? All right, so let's take a brief remark now from the Member of Parliament for Medina, Honorable Francis Javier Sosu. If you're here, it's time for us to hear from you now. Let's welcome you with a round of applause. And please do this for us in 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm sure I'll do less than 5 minutes. As you are all aware, yesterday's rains caused havoc in my constituency, so we are still on a tour, just inspecting people who have struggled through the night and trying to provide them with some support. So I would beg that I'll do this under 5 minutes. And also to beg Nanache and all the invited guests that After my brief remark, I'll ask permission so I can be on the field with those who are struggling. Nana Chair, I would beg again to rely on all the protocols that have already been established and to say that I'm really excited that you are within this great institution situated here in the Medina constituency hosting this national dialogue. It is a very, very significant dialogue because recently I had the opportunity to be nominated to serve on the GRA board. And for that reason, a conversation like this and the recommendations that would come out of this conversation will be so key to those of us serving on that board as we provide some guidance and direction and monitoring and supervision for the work at the GRA. So I just want to wish all of you well. I have seen my tax lecturer here, Professor Ali Nachia, and then also seen my mentor and lecturer. I know he will not forgive me that I'm forgetting their names. Yeah, Prof. Jan. It's because of their leadership. That is why we are where we are today. There was no way we could make it without their guidance. Please, let's give it to them. Anytime we see them, it is our duty to really acknowledge what they've done with our lives as they watch us grow through the law. And so you are most welcome. Enjoy your stay. And I can assure you that every recommendation that will come out of this gathering would definitely be implemented to ensure that we shore up tax revenue in Ghana. Thank you very much. God bless you.
Thank you so much, Member of Parliament for Medina, Francis Javier Sosu, and thank you for doing it under 5 minutes. Another round of applause for him. Now, this is refreshing because for the first time this afternoon, we are going to hear from a woman. I thought you would clap for that. Yes. The men have been pouring into us, and it's time for us to hear from a woman. Ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome on stage the Deputy Commissioner of Ghana Revenue Authority, Elsie Apau Esquire, to give us his special address for us this afternoon in her lovely colors. Oh, you're representing Purple Month, aren't you? Yes, you see the women, we know how to do it. Another round of applause for her. 10 minutes.
Thank you very much, MC. Former Finance Minister has agreed to pay his tax for overusing the time this afternoon, and we are ready to collect same. Yeah. Thank you very much for this August invitation. Venerable Chair, King Dr. Taki Teko Chu II, please send my greetings humbly to my father. He's a great man, and we are happy to be under his chairmanship today. Vice Chancellor for UPSA, my very good friend, Professor Kweku Mensah Mauto. We were friends and student politicians many years ago. I also wish to acknowledge other faculty members and the leadership of UPSA. I will not forgive myself if I do not recognize Professor Kwame Jan, my law professor, and also Professor Ali Nachia, who taught me the law of taxation. These men are great talents for the development of our nation, Ghana. Let's give them and show them some love. Nime, Name, Togbeo Mamao, Nananum. Honorable guest, also permit me to acknowledge the representative of the former President, John Ejekun Kufuor, my very good friend. We were student mates in University of Cape Coast, Kabila. Thank you for being here. Colleagues, my friend Dominic Naba from the GRA and other staff members of the GRA present hearing, the media, and everybody gathered hearing. I bring you warm greetings from Mr. Anthony Kwesi Sapon, the Commissioner General of the Ghana Revenue Authority, who should have been here, but obviously for other pressing assignments could not join us. But we'll do our best to stand in his stead to convey our message to today's gathering. We are gathered this afternoon to partake in a crucial national dialogue to address a pressing issue that affects us all: tax revenue leakages. On behalf of the GRA, and in particular the Commissioner General, I stand here in solidarity with all stakeholders committed to tackling the pressing challenge that we face as a nation. The GRA stands at the forefront of this national assignment, and we consider this responsibility we share with all of you as crucial as citizens have a responsibility as enshrined in our Constitution to promote and protect the best interests of our beloved country. As a shared goal, we at the GRA aim to create a fair, efficient, and transparent tax system that supports Ghana's socio-economic development. By working together, we can identify and plug revenue leakages, ensuring that every Ghanaian's contribution of their fair share goes further to develop our beloved nation. Revenue mobilization is the backbone of national development, determining the country's ability to invest in infrastructure, social programs, and economic stability. In Ghana, the current role of the GRA has never been more crucial as the nation grapples with fiscal constraints, relatively high inflation, and public debt. It is evident, however, that Ghana is back on the right track of significant improvement due to the enviable leadership of His Excellency, President John Dramani Mahama, and also led by the Finance Minister, Honorable Kessel Atu-Forson. We at the GRA are committed to ensuring that the nation's tax revenue is mobilized in a more efficient, equitable, transparent, and sustainable manner. In our efforts to curtail tax leakages, our key areas of focus has included and still include: 1, digitization, to leverage technology to streamline tax collection, close loopholes, and remove opportunities for tax avoidance and evasion. Secondly, collaboration, fostering partnerships among government agencies, the private stakeholders, and civil society to ensure that we share knowledge and best practices. Capacity building is key to our mandate, and we enhance skills and expertise, first of all, of our officials and our clients. Tax education. It's been said severally this morning that it is the responsibility of every Ghanaian and residents of Ghana to look and commit to the tax obligations as contained in our laws. So at GRA, we ensure citizens' participation and inclusion in tax education. Policy reforms form a key aspect of our work, and the key actions led by our Commissioner General's current reforms include: 1, strengthening the existing revenue assurance and compliance enforcement structures already established in partnership with the Ministry of Finance, which will use real-time transaction data to identify under-declarations, fictitious invoices, and transfer mispricing. Also important for us as part of our reforms is to adopt the adoption of artificial intelligence and machine learning tools to analyze large data sets from the systems of banks, telcos, the registrar of companies, ECG, and customs. AI tools will be used primarily in flagging anomalies such as under-declared income, inconsistent VAT filings, and suspicious trade patterns for audit and investigations. Customs intelligence and post-clearance audits to detect misinvoicing, under-invoicing, and trade-based IFFs. Chair, please permit me to inform this August gathering of the current work done on smuggling. The GRA is strengthening partnerships with the private sector and working assiduously to tackle smuggling in a sustained manner. Collaboration with the Financial Intelligence Center, YOCO, and the Bank of Ghana will also be enhanced to monitor cross-border financial flows, cryptocurrency usage, and capital flight. In addition to this drive, capacity building programs have been enrolled for our staff in digital forensics, data analytics, and compliance auditing. The GRA has also planned a series of programs to educate, inform, and orient citizens and residents about their civic responsibility towards voluntary compliance with tax obligations. Tax reforms for an efficient and equitable system. Chair, please permit me once again to emphasize on the key reform areas under the leadership of the Commissioner General of the GRA, which include: 1, simplification of tax regimes, particularly for SMEs and the informal operators. This includes further refining the tax tab system, presumptive tax models, and flat rate VAT to reduce complexity and enhance compliance. Institutionalization of digital services, we have mentioned, enhancing transparency and taxpayer services through an upgraded integrated tax administration and payment system platforms, real-time customer support, taxpayer segmentation, which has been mentioned, it's our focus, and proactive dispute resolution mechanisms to ensure sustainability of our work. Revising personal income tax thresholds and structures to reflect inflation and income inequity, ensuring lower income groups are not disproportionately taxed. Expanding tax incentives tied to compliance, such as earlier filter discounts, tax clearance fast tracks, and public recognition for compliant businesses. So, businessmen and women here, the GRA is assuring you that if you comply effectively and efficiently, there are some incentives for you. Your tax must work for you, and the Commissioner General of the GRA is very committed to that. Amendments to the Revenue Administration Tax and VAT tax to include stronger enforcement clauses, better transfer pricing regulation, and anti-avoidance measures. These reforms do not only speak to domestic needs, but also position Ghana to engage competitively in global tax negotiations. They also echo President Mahama's position that a fair tax system must serve the people, promote development, and not hinder enterprise. Looking ahead, I will ask this audience, very august ones, I see a lot of sector experts gather here in, what reforms or policies, recommendations will we bring out of this meeting? We at the GRA, we are looking forward to the discussions, the policy recommendations, and all that will be gathered herein. And as my board member, Honorable Francis Xavier Soso said, we have an open mind and an open door to ensure that these feedbacks are well analyzed and then put into enforceable and implementable programs that will inure to the benefit of all of us. The Ghana Revenue Authority reaffirms its commitment to our mandate in strengthening the tax administration by leveraging technology, data analysis, and risk management. We shall improve public education to ensure citizens and residents active inclusion and participation for a sustainable tax culture and compliance. Led by our Commissioner General, we at the GRA envisage a Ghana where tax revenue is harnessed effectively, supporting national development and public services. A Ghana where citizens understand their tax obligations and contribute to the nation's growth. Let us work together to stop revenue leakages, promote tax compliance, and build a Ghana that is prosperous for the next generation. Together we can achieve this. Thank you and have a good afternoon.
Do you see how I didn't have to prompt her to end her speech? A round of applause for her. Thank you so much, Deputy Commissioner for Ghana Revenue Authority, LC Apau Esquire. All right. I think now we are getting to the meat of the matter. We are going to get our keynote messages now, but to set the pace for that, or to set the tone for that, we will show you a non-fictional film presenting you the facts as it is. So while we prepare for our keynote speeches, let's watch this short documentary, and then the message will follow. If the technical team is ready, please let's all turn our attention to the screen now and watch.
In a country like Ghana, where the growth of the economy is driven by resources and infrastructure, one of the most significant challenges is ensuring that tax revenue is collected efficiently and transparently. However, for over 2 decades, Ghana has faced a persistent issue: tax revenue leakages. These leakages have eroded the country's potential, hindering its ability to invest in essential public services like healthcare, education, and infrastructure. Tax revenue leakages have a far-reaching impact, limiting the government's ability to fund crucial services that citizens depend on. From congested hospitals with insufficient resources to schools struggling with outdated materials, the lack of tax revenue directly affects the quality of life for Ghanaians. These leakages, largely driven by inefficiencies in tax administration, corruption, and illicit activities such as smuggling and underreporting, have resulted in Ghana losing billions of dollars every year. In fact, the Auditor General's 2020 report revealed that Ghana lost approximately $2 billion due to these systemic issues. But amidst these challenges, a beacon of hope has emerged. The Revenue Assurance and Compliance Enforcement (RACE) program was established to confront these issues head-on. Through innovative strategies, RACE aims to track and reduce revenue leakages, ensuring that more funds reach the government coffers. RACE works tirelessly to monitor key sectors such as petroleum, mining, and customs, where leakages have been most prevalent. By implementing tighter compliance checks and utilizing technology, RACE is revolutionizing the way Ghana collects its tax revenue. With real-time data on imports
and Finance, Professor Isaac Gwedi, to give us the keynote address at this point. Let's welcome him with a round of applause, please. This is the meat of the matter. This is the man who's spearheading all of this, the organizing body. And so listen to him with rapt attention. Prof, how many minutes do you need? I'll give you an hour if you want. All right, my timer is on 10 minutes.
I'm sure it's important to recognize some of our lecturers, our professors also with us. You have no idea why we have gathered all sorts of individuals here. We can see our students here. We can see our chiefs. It's because it's a very important conversation and that we need to have this today. So thank you very much for coming. Some of you, it could be your first time coming to UPSA. We are grateful for having you here. I've been wondering how a medical doctor will have a patient who is bleeding and will decide to add more blood. The first thing that medical doctor will have to do is to stop the bleeding before you add more blood. And that is where we find ourselves as a country. We're adding more blood without stopping the leakages. And today our conversation is very simple. Revenue is power. We have two options as a country. If revenue is power, then the way we are moving into It's either we digitalize it or we forget about it. So, Ghana, we know the problem already. What is left? It is just the digital courage, not the political rhetoric anymore. We know the solution. It is a courage that we need. If you go to the next presentation, you realize that per a search that we conducted in the university with some of our colleagues, Ghana will lose close to about over 9 billion Ghana cedi annually. And I can show you the statistics and where we are having these leakages in terms of sectors. And as a result of three important things: tax evasions, corruption, illicit flows. And I can give you countless sources to support my position or our position. And they are there. If you look at the next presentation, the next slide, that should tell you that the over $9 billion that we lose as a country, they are not just numbers. They represent classrooms unbuilt. They represent the medicines. They represent our young people, the dream that have been deferred, or that will be deferred. So just know the number. Then if you look at the next slide, it tells you that the over $9 billion that we lose as a country, if you want to segment or decompose that figure, it represents 4 times of the budget for free SHS. It represents 6 times of the National Health Insurance Scheme in terms of budget or allocation. It represents 50% of 18 billion debt service costs for only 2023. That should tell you the position. The next one should tell you, the next slide, should tell you some quotation from or report by World Bank that as a country, Ghana tax potential remain on top. If we are only able to close the loopholes, we can add about 2 to 3 to 4% to our GDP. And earlier speakers have mentioned the tax to GDP ratio, which is about 13.5 or so. It tells you that if you have a country that generates or contributes tax to GDP about 13%, that should tell you that that country cannot support some infrastructure projects. Because just 13% out of 100 of the GDP, that's a contribution. So we have a problem as a country. Now, if you look at the quotation from World Bank, in fact, from other quotations elsewhere, they support our position and the stance that we have as a country. 13%. That is a problem for this country. Not only that, but if you flip the discussion or you change the emphasis, it tells you that as a country, we are doing below that of Africa. And what is the solution to this problem? And today we are here. It is a moral courage that we need to digitalize our economy and the tax revenue streams. So we go to the next one. We have given a data and a simple data for Ghana. And the GDP ratio has been shown that in Africa, if you go to the next slide, it tells you the position we find ourselves in Africa. That averagely, we are doing, I think, as about 3 point something. If you look at that of South Africa, that of Morocco, that of Tunisia, that of Nigeria, and then DRC, it tells you where we find ourselves as a country. So we have a problem. And we have to proffer or give solution to how we can increase our tax to GDP ratio and what can we do as a country to get more revenue to support the infrastructure project that we have in our country. The next slide presents another interesting issue. So we are here today, having all of you here. What is the problem as a country? What problem do you have? Yes, we do. And we have realized that our problem or the issues that we have been divided into two. The first one is the fact that Ghana, we find ourselves informal sector dominance. That has been the problem. And approximately, it's about 80 to 90%, the informal sector, which means that a country will find it difficult with this informal sector that we have to generate more revenue. And if you look at the tax compliance rate, is below 10%. If you look at the contribution of this sector, the economy we find ourselves, that is about 35 to 40% of our GDP. So a country having such a sector or having these characteristics should definitely tell you that we are going to struggle with our revenues. We are not even coming back to issues of why we are losing a lot of revenues. But that's the state, that's the character of our country. Our next issue is about the fact that we are growing as a country in terms of technology. We have a lot of companies that have been registered online. The problem is, apart from the character the character we have as a country, GRA ability to tax companies that have registered online is a problem because we are growing. Therefore, there should be other solutions that our GRA authorities should be able to find to support the number, the upset, the growth in terms of businesses registered online. And the statistics are there. Because of time, we might not be able to go through all that. But if you flip to the next slide, that should tell you, in terms of online registration of business over the period of time we have given records, how many businesses have registered online, which means that GRA is going to find issues in terms of taxing businesses online. So what must we do as a country? There should be a solution to tackle this problem. Already we have given the characters of our country in terms of this, the fact that we are more informal in nature. You can go to the next one. So what do we do? If revenue is power, our only option is to digitalize what we have as a country. So we will not go through all that because of time factor, but this is what we want to propose. Our authorities must have that courage, especially the GRA, should be able to fashion out certain strategies that will be able, can deploy to tackle some of these revenue leakages. And what do? Our next presenter will give us the best model that as a country we can employ to tackle the numerous leakages that we are having as a country. So if you go back to the next one, because of time, can you flip to the next one, the last one? The last quote over there, that should tell you our position as an institution, what we should do. And this is what we want to say, that digitalization is not just a technical upgrade. It is a battle against institutionalized theft. In Ghana, The fight to digitalize revenue system is a fight for national survival. So we have invited you here, and our message is very simple. Ghana as a country, our authorities must have the digital courage in helping block the leakages. Thank you very much.
A round of applause for Professor Isaac Boedi, Dean for the Faculty of Accounting and Finance right here at the University of Professional Studies. Coming up next, we have Dr. Eric Boakye-Adom. He's also a senior lecturer here and a financial economist. Also, another keynote presentation. And you see him walking up the podium already. A round of applause for him. Dr. Eric Boakye-Adom for our next and last keynote address for today.
Thank you so much. I stand on the already existing protocols established. And His Royal Majesty Kentucky Terrier True, the second. Thank you so much for the honor done us to be here with us this afternoon. And I want to go straight to my presentation and want to look at how best we can close the tax leakages that we have in our country. And the various speakers we have today have told us that one way or the other, technology or digitalization is the way forward. The next slide, please. The next one, and the next one. Good. So because of time, we have to skip so many things and go straight to the point. If you look at the slides that we are just showing, we are looking at, in the past 15 years, from 2010 to date, any time GRA meets its target, it has a certain effect on GDP. So consistently, when GRA meets the target, we expect that economic growth will go up. And it follows basic economic principle. If you look at a simple solo model, that there are basic two things for economic development. Number one is capital. Number two is labor. And probably we go forward, we can add technology to it. So if we want to do well as a country, then there's a need for us to make sure that GRA is working efficiently and effectively so that we will be able to get the needed fund to finance our activities. Then I began looking at how can we help GRA to meet its target. So I looked at various local and international reports from IMF, from World Bank, Tax Consultant, KPMG report, ACEP report, that is ACEP report. There's one theme they are all driving at, and the theme is that we should find a way to introduce digitalization in the way we mobilize tax. If we take the digitalization out of our tax composition or out of our tax mobilization strategy, we will not be doing well, and the needed funds will not be realized. It is interesting to know that from 2010 to 2024, if we split it into two, the years into two, from 2010 to 2019, out of that 10 years, GRA was able to meet its target only four times. So that is, in terms of performance over 10 years, they achieved 40%. The period after 2019, which is 2020, 2021, 2022 to 2023, they met all their targets and exceeded greatly. One would ask, what made them to be able to meet their target post-2019? It was the period where GRA employed a lot of technology and digitalization in their activities. So, ladies and gentlemen, if GRA want to do well, and it's refreshing to have the Deputy Commissioner here with us, starting a new term. If we want to do as GRA, then we need to deepen technology. So I was looking around best models of technologies that can be adopted. GRA has implemented ICOMS, which in a way is helping them to track revenue from the ports and from other key sectors of the Ghanaian economy. Then, the ICOMS will provide you information in terms of classification of goods from the port, in terms of even downstream trading activities. In connection with NPA, they are able to use the ERDMS to also be able to check volumes of trade. But you see, in audit, we need to be able to find an extra information, an additional information. Okay, yes, we are good to go. Can you go to the next slide for me? The next slide. The next slide. Good. So this is what I was talking about earlier. Let's go. This is what I was talking about. Look at the data that from 2010 to date, it is only in, the GRA was able to meet their target in 2010, 2011, 2012, and somewhere 2015. That's about 4 times within the 10. 2019, some say they made their target, they didn't meet their target, but original figures show that they couldn't meet their target. There's a whole lot of debate on that. But the post-2019, which is 2020, you could see that they achieved 100%. And we all agree it is the period where GRA deepened technology in terms of their revenue collection. Next slide, please. So if we want to shoot per the MTRS, the medium-term revenue mobilization strategy, we want to move our tax to GDP to around 20% by 2027. Then there is a need for us to strengthen and embrace more technology. Next slide. Good. I was earlier talking about ability to audit and find a technology to provide information. As academics, you see, we have to get into troubled waters. Sometimes certain things, we try to stay away from it, and we are known to be publishing and keeping it on our shelves. But we have to do research that is relevant, and it can be applied. If we want to talk about technology and a way to be able to find a solution to the problem that we face, there is a model which many of us may be aware, the SML, the Strategic Mobilization Limited Ghana, has a tested model. And yes, we have probably heard all the news, maybe the bad one, about SML. But we cannot rule out that since their engagement from 2020 coming, it has had some significant effect on our revenue mobilization. So, is this model good? Is it bad? Is it sometimes when there's a news publication, usually the one who speaks first is right. And it tends to make us block our mind to find out, actually go and find the information. What is the reality about what has been shown on television, and on radio and the media outlets? So I decided to go into it. I wrote to SML to know more about what they do. They opened their doors to me. I went to find out what they do. I mean, in terms of how they are able to do revenue assurance. And I have a few things to say about them. Next slide. Okay, next one. Good. We watched or probably have seen a documentary by a journalist called Manasseh Azuri about SML, raising so many concerns about this particular company. So, raised concerns about, some of the concerns were the procurement processes, whether it is legitimate, whether they've been paid for, are they actually doing a double work because we have ICOMS in the system, which is also in a way a technology. Is it duplicitous or they are doing a unique work? Then there are things about their contractual arrangement. Okay, I will respond to a few of these things. Next slide. So yes, GRA is the one responsible for collecting our taxes. When you come to the petroleum downstream, we have the NPA that has the ERDMS. It enables you to track your volume, the trading activities, and their data can be now compared with what GRA has. But many of these activities prior to SML, especially when it comes to differences between what NPA has and what GRA has, usually when it comes to the reconciliation, it's usually done manual. So there should be a need for us to find a second way to verify whether what has been reported by the BDCs and all the players is the right quantity that is being declared. And when you go to the upstream currently, we have those players, the tallow there who are drilling oil, and they have their flow meters checking what has been drilled, and GRA personnel and other personnel are there to verify that the quantity that have been declared, is it the right quantity or is not the right quantity? So GRA is there to show or to ensure that the right taxes are collected. The royalties of about 5% will be collected. If we don't have a second way of verifying or a third way of verifying that the meter reading from tallow and all the organizations who are players in there is accurate and there's a need to be reconciliation, then you will have to go back to the same figure you are challenging. It is therefore important for us to have a second eye or a third way of gathering data. And that is why GRA need to be able to implement something to be able to collect data. Thank you. Next one. Next. Good. I'm sure my next presenter may have the time to talk about these things. So, if in audit, let's talk about whether what they are doing is duplicitous or not. In a typical accounting, it's good we have chartered accountant here and those who work in accounting firm here. There is a corporate accountant who he prepares the financial information or the financial statement. Then there's an internal auditor who verifies whether what you've done is correct or not. Then we call an external auditor to double check whether what you are doing is the right thing. So, yes, there is GRA collecting the taxes, and there are players within the space. In the petroleum downstream, we can say ICOMS is, in a way, it facilitates trading, and you can monitor real things that are happening there. But we will need a third eye to be able to gather data and compare whether what has been gathered or what has been reported is the right thing, even in the upstreams. In this case, in as much as there's news about SML, I think that it is an issue we need to revisit. Kindly go on. Next. I'm jumping so that I can make time for other. Good. I want to end with this presentation. In Africa, government or government institutions are the biggest investors. So it is almost the case that you can't do business without engaging government. And in our quest to find solutions, we are going to have indigenous Ghanaians who, one way or the other, will start as entrepreneurs to offer solutions. We are not saying there will not be problems. There are problems, but we need to find a way to deal with it. Just yesterday, I read in the news that Starlink is backed by the US government, and they are being pushed down the throat of many African countries, that you must approve Starlink to be able to get certain benefit or developmental assistance. In the same way, I think we need a policy or deliberate effort to encourage Ghanaians that are going into certain areas especially with revenue assurance. There's a brief history. And you see, if we check in Ghana, hardly are we going to have a third generation business, a business that has been run by somebody handing over to another person and another person handing it to the next person. On top of my head, I can talk about Enterprise and Nkulenu and probably about 2 or 3 companies that have lived through, because when a business is built, the same Ghanaian will rise up to collapse it. In 1969, a certain man started brewery, J.K. Siam, Tata Brewery. And he was producing Mortex, transporting or selling to Togo, Benin, almost greater part of West Africa. Then by 1979, he was accused of tax evasion. And the company didn't see the light of day. We collapsed it because of tax evasion. Now, the company will no longer be there for you to collect taxes. And the company will also not employ anybody. Then a certain man decided to go into industrial chemist, Dr. Kwame Safo Adu. Also started doing so well. Then we ganged up against him. And we destroyed the company. B.A. Mensah was at a point employing about 14,000 Ghanaians in International Tobacco Company. 14,000 Ghanaians. Then we brought all the things that, you see, whatever I'm saying this at the background of SML, that whatever we are saying or doing about SML is history repeating itself. Then we know about Kinafama, which almost killed Kinafama, that they were using some chemicals, drugs, a drug house. That tarnished the image of that particular company. Super Info Tech Solution was also seen as a revenue assurance company, who, when we introduced CST, the communication service tax, they were to do assurance. Then the media popularized, said that they were being paid for no work done. So SML, you have to know that you are not the first to be told no work, you are being paid for no work done. It is a history that we have as a country.
Doc, I hate to do this to you.
Go as far as the banking sector cleanup. In as much as I agree that we need cleanup in our banking sector, I think it could have been done differently. Honorable Minister, I think that it could have been done differently. I think. What am I trying to say? We will have challenges in the way that we run our businesses. But let's not kill them. Let's have a dialogue to talk about it. What we learn from history is that people do not learn from their history. And we should not be a country that kills entrepreneurs. We should be a country that encourages entrepreneurs. There will be problems, but the problems can be fixed. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Eric Boachie-Adom, Senior Lecturer and Financial Economist. Doc, you are part of my list of people who pay tax because you used all my time. Oh, wow. All right, now listen, he's spoken a lot about the Strategic Mobilization Ghana Limited, and let's hear from the horse's own mouth, like the saying goes. We have among us this evening, and coming up next to speak to us is the Director of Support Services at Strategic Mobilization Ghana Limited, which is SML. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome upstage Dr. Yase Wasapong for a brief remark on it. I love the color you're wearing. Very beautiful. Doc, do this for me in 10 minutes, please. We have a panel discussion. I'm so sorry.
Right. Good afternoon, Nana Chair, Nime, Name, Nananom, and all protocols observed. I am here to, the nature of my presentation is very different from the ones you have seen, because we are here to demonstrate to you what we do at SML, our innovation that we have brought to the country that is enabling GRA to be able to plug in revenue leakage in the downstream, and at current, our new addition, which is the upstream, and also the solid mineral innovation. So 10 minutes. Okay, then I will go straight into the video. Oh, right. Okay. I'll go straight into the video so we can see the deployment. There were things that I wanted to speak to, but given the time. But first of all, just let me say this. SML is a wholly owned Ghanaian company, as my previous speaker has said to you. We specialize in revenue assurance for JRA, starting from transaction audit to downstream, and now we are waiting to expand our scope to the upstream and the solid minerals.
Okay. Technical team, attention.
Yeah. Right, so I'll go straight to what I have here. When we came to the downstream, GRA had a lot of challenges, but the one that was clearly staring at them and at us, in essence, was to solve the issue of stock reconciliation between the lifted volume of petroleum products and the taxable volume of petroleum product. What do we mean by this? When the petroleum product, including diesel, petrol, are brought into the country, they are stored at a depot where the fuel stations, which we call OMCs, will go there for wholesaling, and then they will come and retail to us at the fuel stations. So what happens is when these petroleum products are taken from this storage area, which is a bonded warehouse, also called as depots, they are called liftings. They are lifted from the depots and brought to us to be sold to us for consumption. Can you pause this for me? I'm just trying to lay the background story about what we are doing. Now, the tax exercise in this space is that the OMCs have to sell the product to us before they bring the tax to government. So what is important for GRA is for them to be able to have the accurate recording of this product. Other than that, once it leaves the depot, they will lose the revenue because it will not be accounted for. Now, when he came into the downstream, can you start me with the gap between the lifting volumes and the taxable volumes? Okay. So when we came into the downstream, what we saw was that when we lifted over 6.3 billion liters of petroleum product, GRA could only account for 3.1 billion liters of the volumes that has been lifted. That was giving a gap of about 3.2 billion liters under 16 months of our comparative analysis, which is from January 2019 to April 2020. What we have done, based on what I'm going to show you, is that we have deployed automated systems that is helping the GRA to be able to match up with the lifting volumes. So at current, when NPA, who records the lifting volumes, records 4 billion liters of petroleum product, GRA is also able to record 7.1 billion of petroleum product for tax collection. That is a significant reduction of what stood for a gap difference in volume. We've reduced the gap from the 3.2 billion approximation to 260 million liters. That is about 91.88% reduction. What this means is that when it comes to revenue terms, about 4.6 billion Ghana cedis was going through the cracks before SML came into the scene. And by bridging the gap, what we have done is that we have brought it down under the 16 months comparative assessment we made, we have brought it down to 375 million Ghana cedis. That is a remarkable reduction we have done. That is not just what we have done. We have also improved the existing monthly average volume for the tax collection volume. So what we have done is that when we came into the downstream, it was 280 average monthly taxable volume that was there. GRA had that, which translates into about 299 million Ghana cedis a month. We, through our efforts, have been able to bring this 208 million litres volume to 450 million litres, which translates into about 648 million Ghana cedis per month. That is, we have more than doubled the existing volumes or the money that GRA was getting every month. Over the years, can you go to the next slide? Over the years, if you do an accumulation of what we have done from June 2020 to December 2024, the volume that we have, the excess volume that we have been able to accumulate will stand at 14.1 billion litres. And if you want to translate it into revenue, multiplying it by the tax component, which we always remain at 1.44, even though it's increased, you will arrive at 20.3 billion in tax revenue addition to what was there. This is what we have added to the downstream operation with regards to tax mobilization. Now, how have we done this? I will just skip some slides and just jump into our deployments and other things. So what you are seeing is the typical depot in Ghana. These tanks are 20 feet above. Before SML, if you could pause for me. Before SML, these tanks, GRA officers climb these tanks every morning to go and use dipsticks to measure the petroleum products sitting in the tanks. But with our coming, what we have done is that we have deployed metering systems, both meters, ultrasonic flow meters, and automatic tank gauging meters that are measuring the linear quantity of the product in the tanks. And at the same time, we've strategically positioned ultrasonic flow meters to the pipes that are leading to the gantry where petroleum products leaves the depot. What this means is that we are able to account for even a drop of petroleum product that leaves the depot. So in the night, when GRA officers are not around, and any depot operator starts their machine to put in fuel into any truck, SML is able to track this, and GRA will take their tax for it. These are the ultrasonic flow meters that we have strapped on the pipes, as I have said. When we came to the downstream, we came to meet an already existing facility. So the only way we could deploy our systems were to do non-intrusive deployments, which is to not invade into what was already existing. Now, these are some of our equipments that we have deployed in the depots. These are converters that are converting all the process of the flow of the product as they pass through the pipes. So they will be sent into readable data that we can be able to process. When we finish this, these are the field deployments. All of these information, these are automatic tank gauging systems sitting on the tank, so they can be able to measure the product that is in the tank. That means at every point in time, GRA is able to know the product in every tank across the nation. When we finish with this, we are not done. SML is the first company in this country that has been able to seamlessly integrate the field deployment information that we receive and then bring it to the data center for the computer itself to do the AI management automation, to do reconciliation of the information we've taken from the field. This is what you are seeing here, the data facility center that has dashboards that are dedicated to every depot across the country. We have 25 depots. So we are monitoring all the depots in the country from Boga, Kumase, Akosombo, Bupe, Takoradi, Tema. Everywhere GRA through SML has insight into the operational activities that are going on in our depots across the country. Now, what you are looking at now is the dashboard that is dedicated to monitor operations that is going on in the downstream. This particular dashboard is the Bosque Kumasi. So what we are looking in real time, because this has been paused, in real time, even as we are sitting here, every lifting that is going on across the depots in our country is being seen by JRA through SML's deployment. So we have the daily totals. If you can see the numbers changing, we will pick a live feed just after we finish introducing the gold and the upstream. At every point in time, we have the daily recordings, we have the monthly recordings, we have the daily recordings also for the tax, and then the daily recordings for the liftings that has been taken. What this is doing is that we are giving to GRA in real time all the information that is needed to make informed decisions, to be able to know that OMCs have lifted beyond their bonds or not, so they can stop those who will run into debt and not be able to pay them. Now, we are also monitoring the product. If you could pause for me. We are monitoring the product. We also monitor LPG and all other petroleum products. We are also monitoring the type of product that runs through the pipe. Before we came, sometimes when the products are lifted, for instance, if a petrol is lifted, it can be labeled as kerosene. The reason being that the tax component for petrol is higher than the tax component for kerosene. So when it's recorded as kerosene, they pay less money for it. So that is the downstream operation, seamlessly integrating in real time the field deployment and then the automated system, which we call SML Esperion. It does reconciliation and chance report for GRA for them to be able to know the operational activities that is going on in the downstream. Now, we want to showcase our readiness of extending this same insight in real time to the upstream that Ghana is having challenges to know what goes on in the FPSO. What you are looking at now is SML's Data Facility Center for the upstream innovation that we have brought on board. We have not started operations yet, but we are ready. We have 3 working FPSOs at the moment in the country. So we have the FPSO John Ajekum Kufuor, the Sankofa Jinyame oil field. We have also FPSO John Evans Atamels, the 10th field. We also have the FPSO Kwame Nkrumah, which is also the Jubilee field. Now, if you can pause this for me. What you are looking at here, we have sectioned the phases that we have interest in on the FPSO on behalf of GRA. The first image you are seeing is the FPSO on the sea. The picture for it is a complex system, but where we have interest is where GRA can receive the tax for the development of the nation. So we have interest in the crude oil production meter, where if you look at the black balls, that is like a stairs. It is the crude oil processing train. When the product is extracted from the sea, it comes with water, sediments, oil, the crude oil itself, and the gas. So this system, the processing train, is separating all of them. When that is done, can you continue to pause for me so I can give the explanation? Thank you. So when that is done, the crude oil passes through the pipes and comes into the crude oil storage tank, which is on the other side. The same thing, we've just zoomed it in on the third image for you to be able to see. Now, what SML will do is that we will meter, just as we've put automatic tank gauging systems on the tanks. We are also going to put the same meters on the FPSO, on the storage tank, the hydrocarbon storage tanks. We will record the total barrels of crude oil that has been produced per day, and also the total barrels of crude oil that has been produced per month. When you come to the crude oil storage, what we are looking at is to look at the flow that has come in. So if we had plugged in real time, Ghana would be able to see the numbers changing. When the numbers are changing, it means that we are monitoring. Now we will be able to know how much petroleum product that is stored on the FPSO for the nation to be taken out. Once these tankers are ready and full, they are taken off on the offtake system that will send it out for export. So what we are going to do, we have a third interest also to meter the offtake. And what that will do is that we will be recording the total barrels of crude oil that is lifted per day, per month, and also the number of liftings that has been made per month. When we finish with this, the manifest or the document of the offtake, together with the monitoring we have made, will be reconciled, the reports will be churned and be given to GRA. GRA themselves will be manning this deployment. What this means is that in real time, through GRA, the nation knows exactly what is going on the FPSO. We are extending the same innovation also to the solid mineral sector. If you can go to the next video for me. Thank you. So what you are seeing is also the SML Nova data center, which is also going to monitor in real time the extraction of the solid minerals, starting with the gold. Now, what we will do is that we will monitor the gold from the gold room through the transportation stages through to the refinery. At the gold room, we have created or developed an analyzer and a scale. The scale will weigh the product. The analyzer, this is the scale weighing the product. It will tell us, once the product is weighed, it will send to the data center. So the gold that was on the scale was 2 kilos. Every mineral that, or consignment that is taken at the extractive stage in the gold room will be weighed for the nation to see through GRA. And when that is done, the same analyzer that you are looking at now is analyzing the gold. When it analyzes the gold, what it does is that it's going to churn out information about the chemical composition of the consignment of the gold. So it will generate a barcode report. If you can pause this for me, thank you. It will generate a barcode report. That barcode report is tracking the product. At the same time, is giving the karat, which is the purity of the product. It's giving the chemical composition as well. So for instance, this particular product that we scanned on the 22nd of April, 2025, what it is saying is that the gold has 91% of, the product has 91% of gold, 9.3% of silver, and 0.1 copper. What this is going to help the nation through GRA, GRA will be able to estimate the cost of the product even before they leave the shores of this country. So they have an estimated expectation of royalty that they will receive from this product that is going out. And we are doing this across all mining companies in the country with their mining site. Again, the analyzer is giving information about the companies, is giving information about the map. If you look at the other side where the picture is, the map comes first. That means that if at every point in transition, GRA has oversight into the product's movement. Now, it doesn't just end there. The analyzer is able to also send a picture to the data center for GRA to be able to see the picture of the exact the consignment that is being taken through the transportation. Once it hits the refinery, we are able to tell GRA, the system will bring information back to us to tell us that the product has hit the refinery has also generated the cost of the product, and we will reconcile that with what was already taken. Once that reconciles, we are happy, GRA is happy. They will receive the royalty that is due the nation. If there is a margin that is an anomaly, we will look into that, and GRA will resolve that. This is the SML Nova that we have developed for the nation, so that the nation through GRA can make informed decisions about the upstream operation that is going on and also about our gold. So in essence, through SML, GRA is entering into the extractive industries are entering into a new era that is technological. and SML is poised to give this even more. Now we have our data center ready on standby to show to you in real time what is going on around the country. You can see that the numbers are changing. What is happening is that as we are seated here, I don't know, because they've zoomed in for you to be able to see the numbers. I don't know the exact depot we are showing to you. But this is the depot, for instance, if it's a Boss APD in Tema. As we sit here, they are loading and you can see the numbers are changing. So what we wanted to display to you is that for the first time in the history of this nation, a company is giving to government through GRA real-time monitoring oversight for GRA at every point in time, at the click of a button, to be able to tell the nation the stock we have for the downstream. And when we start the upstream operation, we are going to repeat same for upstream and also for the gold. Now, before I bring my presentation to an end, I just want to conclude with this, that from what we have demonstrated to you today, we have showcased that the hemorrhage of revenue leakage can be cured for Ghana. The innovation is here, and SML is leading. SML is ready. We are ready with expertise, we are ready with the tools, and we are also ready with the proven track record, and the groundbreaking innovation. We are prepared, and we are equipped, and we are waiting. And as the famous song lyric says, what are we waiting for? Regarding real-time monitoring of our extractive industries, particularly the upstream and the solid minerals, Ghana cannot wait any longer. The time for action is now. So let's act now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Yasewa Sapong, Director of Support Services at Strategic Mobilization Ghana Limited. What you're still seeing right now on your screen is live from their headquarters. Right. Another round of applause for SML, for Dr. Sewa Sapong, and the fantastic work that they're doing. What she said that I think will stick with me is that the solution to revenue leakages is doable right here in Ghana. Ladies and gentlemen, the very last item on my list before we segue into the panel discussion for tonight. Let's get an address now by the Executive Secretary, Chamber of Petroleum Consumers, COPEC, Mr. Duncan Amwa. Let's hear from you now. Let's welcome him with a round of applause, please. Mr. Duncan Amwa is the Executive Secretary, Chamber of Petroleum Consumers, popularly known as COPEC, and it's his time to address us now. I will deduct 1 minute from your time because you're taking that 1 minute to come up stage. Another round of applause for him. Have we taken the wind out of your sail?
Well, thank you. You've taken my 1 minute already, so I'll try to stay as brief as I possibly can. I did a slide presentation. Unfortunately, I'm unable to share with the audience, but will do my best so that you are able to follow with the numbers and what exactly I'm trying to also communicate here. I'll stay very brief. On this note, permit me to stand on existing protocols already established. Nime, Name, the former president's representative, of course, to my older brother, the former Deputy Energy Minister and Finance Minister of the Republic. Good to see you. And then to the tax experts here. I haven't done much with taxes, but I've done a lot with policy. So I am also aware that a tax as a policy would naturally have two consequences for the people. Two consequences, the intended the unintended. And I have often said that it is often the unintended that even matters more to us. The intended, we need to generate the revenue. We need the money to be able to build social amenities or social capital for our people. The unintended, we are collecting from the people, and then there's a pushback. And so oftentimes, though the intended is that we want to build roads, we want to build schools, the target is for the people against whom the tax incidence is slapped. The very people who often push back, and I and my chamber and the chamber members are very guilty. We've had a lot more pushbacks on taxes than we have actually accepted, because oftentimes we are not too sure whether our pockets can afford or it will stretch our personal incomes beyond what we already have. So for me, taxation is a very, very, very important subject pertaining to what we do. And if I could have shared my slides with you, you would come to a realization that we've grown taxes, particularly on petroleum in this country, some of the components in excess of 1,000% over a period of 10 years. Again, you would ask the people who pay their taxes whether they are happy. The truth is that they will tell you they are not seeing what the taxes are being used for. And so anytime we talk about taxes to the people, sometimes we are upset that you are collecting so much, our roads are poor. Water doesn't come through our taps for many days. In recent times, you go home, there's no light. And so what exactly is the taxes being used for? But you have a very interesting subject matter here that says that revenue leakage. And so I began my slides this way. Revenue leakage and tax avoidance are pretty much bedfellows. I must sometimes have a motivation to want to avoid paying the tax. And so though GRA has set a target for itself to collect the tax from me, if the motivation for avoiding the tax is higher than wanting to pay, I'll do anything possible to avoid the tax. And so I said, well, is there an incentive usually for tax avoidance? The answer clearly is yes, especially when the incidence of taxation is often so very high, such that it makes rational sense to use every available means to dodge the tax rather than paying same. I ask again, should our tax authorities, the GRA, I'm happy you are here, ably represented by the beautiful deputy, should our tax authorities be concerned about tax revenue or tax leakages? Where should your focus lie? Should it be on the revenue you want to generate, or should it be on the revenue you didn't generate, what you should have but you couldn't generate? The answer again is yes. Like I indicated, you hear the masses say that they are paying so much, yet they see nothing done with these taxes. Oftentimes, as shown in the petroleum space, the taxes that you intend to collect from us, per hour study, 25% of that would end up in private pockets, just for the downstream. When you go to the upstream, the rot there cannot be quantified. And so I was happy when my older brother, the former finance minister, was speaking. He alluded to a GRA audit report in 2022-2023 that captured that the international oil companies clearly they've done more harm than what they've given to us. Most of the FPSOs, the actual cost of these FPSOs are simply overinflated, because then they will be able to take that in oil, you know, which we should have been able to sell and be able to collect taxes for. Then again, you have
the issue of what we are doing to even track how much these taxes should have been. I was a member of the Ghana Standards Authority Committee that did set the standards average. And so around the time when they had set or calibrated for tracking of the crude that we were taking from our Jubilee partners, when I heard that there's been some collusion and then the flow meters had been disallowed by the IOCs, I knew we were in trouble, because clearly, if I cannot tell from the GRA point of view how much or how many barrels of crude is being extracted on a daily, how do I go to them and say that you owe me X, Y, Z for corporate income tax? How do I go back to them to demand for additional oil entitlements when the true volumes of what is being extracted is to my blind side, and it is what they declare? And so I put to this forum that there is a lot that needs to be done. And then, fortunately for us, you have a solution which is digital, which is locally driven. I am happy to see that SML is also here. I'm happy to see the tax people also discussing the need to digitize. The need to digitize. I have been an active observer of the downstream and upstream in some cases. You will put GRA officials, Madam Elsie, your officials will go to the depots. Within a year, they have all the money that you don't have as a revenue body. And so that is where there is the need to eliminate the human intervention as best as practicable, because the more you put people there, the more our systems would find a reason for them to compromise on not reporting true values or true figures. And so I think that in 2025, when we are even moving away from internet using the optic fiber cable to now Starlink that launches into space, there's a lot of digitization happening that we should take advantage of. We should be able to move away from the human interfacing in our tax revenue mobilization efforts and be able to stick with the press of a button and be able to decide that for today, this is how much ICOMs generated from our ports. And you don't need to double check with your officer on the ground, because everything that has been paid for reflects on a dashboard. And so I am all for every effort whatsoever by your outfit to digitize. Because if you don't digitize, you slap us, the petroleum users, and other Ghanaians with needless add-ons with taxes. I have a slide that talks about your actuals, how much you generate, and how much your targets were. And oftentimes, when you miss your target, you are in a hurry to think that we didn't pay. But we paid. It just didn't get to you. And so if you can have a dashboard that allows you to track how much I have paid, how much everybody in this room has paid every single day, I think that it would be able to help you in not only your planning purposes, but also in your collection purposes, so that I don't wake up to August. The finance minister comes to Parliament to deliver the mid-year budget, and he says that we should pay more taxes when we're already paying too much more. And so I am all for any efforts to digitize, and in the absence of anybody providing any superior dashboard than what I have so far observed with the SML platform, I would say that let's kill the politics. I was one of the first people
Mr.
that took on... just a minute.
No, I'm not cutting you. I'm not cutting you. For our audience watching us on JoyNews, we'll be getting off at 5 p.m. exactly. Thank you so much for spending your time with us. And if you don't see us again, you can look out on all social media platforms and continue the panel discussion with us. Thank you so much. And we'll hand over to Ekosi Sen also on Asempa FM. And so for JoyNews, our audience on JoyNews, thank you for your time. Please go on.
Thank you very much. I thought you were taking my 1 minute away. What I am saying in brief is this. I have observed the petroleum space, which also contributes almost 9% of your total tax revenue to the country. I have observed it for more than a decade. And what I can say for a fact is that all kinds of games would go on. In fact, temperature compensation is even another issue, where a depot receives a product at 15 degrees and then it dispatches or sells the product at 25 degrees. That 10%, the 10-degree margin is some product gained. And so if you don't have technology to be able to tell you how much has been pumped out, how much is still in tank, you will only be enriching a few people. And at the end of the day, like I indicated, you will come back to us, the trotro drivers in the room, to pay more taxes because what you were expecting, you didn't get. Not that we didn't pay, we paid. But it simply would have ended in the pockets of some other individuals.